Namaste. Welcome to day 25 of the one-month-long festival on oneness on Adi Shankara, organized by the Advaita Academy. For those who are joining us for the first time, we have 2 sessions daily at 6 a.m. and 6:30 p.m. India time. On weekends, we have an extra session each in the morning and evening. So please attend all these sessions and immerse yourself in the knowledge of Adi Shankara. Today we have a live talk by S. Venkataraghavan on Sambandha bhAShya from the brihadAraNyaka Upanishad and a video talk on Devi Aparadha Kshamapana Stotram by Amritavalli Durvasala. You can post your questions on the chat box and we will take them at the end of the first session. Now let me introduce to you the first speaker. Namaste Venkataraghavan.
Namaste, madam.
Raghavan is a keen student of Advaita Vedanta, having studied the Prasthanatraya from Swami Paramarthananda and the Advaita Siddhi with its commentary, Laghu Chandrika, from Maha Mahopadhyaya Mani Dravida Shastrigal. He is currently translating the Siddhi into relatively simple English on his website, www.advaitasiddhi.com. I had a look at it and it's really a wonderful website.
Thank you.
On the professional front, he is the founder of ARC, an energy technology business in London that is developing cleaner forms of energy. So today, Venkataraghavan ji is going to share with us the Sambandha bhAShya from the brihadAraNyaka Upanishad. Over to you, Venkataraghavan ji.
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam Shruti Smriti Purananam Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavatpadam Shankaram Loka Shankaram Shankarupena Machittam Panki Kritamabhudhyaya Kinkariyasya Samaya Shankaracharya Mashraye Ajnanam Jannavi Tirtham Vidyatirtham Vivekinam Sarvesham Sukhadam Tirtham Bharati Tirthamashraye Vidya Vinaya Sampannam Vitaragam Vivekinam Vande Vedanta Tattvagyam Vidushekara Bharatim. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsharishibhyo Namo Gurubhyaha. Namaste. Thank you for having me here. And I would like to thank and congratulate Advaita Academy for this wonderful festival of oneness that they have put together. I can't think of a better way that we could have spent our lockdown than think about Acharya and immerse ourselves in the teachings of Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada. So with that, I want to talk briefly about what my understanding is from the Sambandha bhAShya, which is the introductory commentary by Shankaracharya to the brihadAraNyaka Upanishad. As we all know, and many speakers have said this before also, Adi Shankara Bhagavatpada wrote the commentaries to the 3 central works of Advaita Vedanta, which is the Prasthanatrayam, comprising of the Brahma Sutra or the Sutra Prasthana, Bhagavad Gita or the Smriti Prasthana, and the Upanishads or the Shruti Prasthana. So these 3 put together are called Prasthanatraya, and Acharya wrote commentaries or bhashyas to the Prasthanatraya. So he's also called as the he's called the Bhashyakara. Now, of all the bhashyas that he has written, the introductions that he gives to these bhashyas are particularly interesting to us because here Acharya is free to elucidate the seminal concepts and the fundamental frameworks of Advaita Vedanta. So if we want to understand a bird's eye view of Vedanta and the context in which Vedanta operates, studying these introductions to these bhashyas is particularly relevant. Of the Prasthanatraya bhashyas, there are 3 introductions which are particularly profound. The first one is the very famous Adhyasa bhashya, which is the introduction to the Brahma Sutra, wherein Acharya Shankara Bhagavatpada does a root cause analysis of samsara and establishes that the fundamental reason why samsara exists is because of avidya or ignorance, and its consequence, adhyasa, which is the superimposition, meaning one mistakes the self for the non-self and the non-self for the self. That is, he takes the body and the mind to be the self, the Atma, and therefore the problems that the body and mind faces, the person attributes or transposes himself on that. So he says, I have these problems, when in reality, the problems are just part of anatma. And that adhyasa is the anartha hetu, or the big fundamental problem of samsara, which the Shastras are seeking to eliminate. The second important introductory bhashyam is the Upodghatam, or introduction to the Bhagavad Gita, wherein Acharya elucidates the nature of dharma. And so he says that dharma is of two types. One is the pravritti dharma, which is the karma kanda, which is geared towards rituals and actions. And then there is the nivritti dharma, which is a renunciation or sannyasa of those karmas, and a concomitant jnana, that is a focus on knowledge. And that is the nature of nivritti dharma. And in the Bhagavad Gita, he establishes that the main reason why the Bhagavad Gita is there, put aside everything else, its primary purpose is as a moksha shastra. That is, Bhagavan Sri Krishna is using Arjuna as a nimittam or a medium, and through teaching him, he is teaching the entire world about the path to moksha and how jnana is a critical component of that. So that is the purpose of the Upodghata bhashya of the Bhagavad Gita. Next, we look at the bhashya, the topic today, which is the Sambandha bhashya, which is the introduction to the brihadAraNyaka Upanishad. So basically, there are four central themes in the Sambandha bhashya. First, Acharya establishes that the entirety of the Vedic canon has validity, which means both the karma kanda or the ritualistic portion, but also the jnana kanda or the knowledge portion of the Veda has validity. Why this is significant for Advaita, we'll come to in a second. Secondly, he says that the knowledge of the self, Atma Jnana, can be known only through the Upanishads. There is no other pramana that can reveal the self. That is the second theme. The third theme, which is relevant to this, is that moksha or liberation from samsara can be achieved only through jnana, not karma, not through karma samuchaya. That is, it can be achieved only through knowledge, not through rituals, not by combining rituals and jnana either, as some groups say. So in Advaita Vedanta, it's jnana devatu kaivalyam. Jnana is the only way to moksha. And therefore, karma kanda and karmas, to justify that, he establishes why karmas and rituals are incapable of producing moksha. So that is the third theme. And the final fourth theme is that this does not mean that the karma kanda has no validity for the mumukshu, the one seeking liberation. It is an important and necessary preparatory step for chitta shuddhi or mental purification, which creates the adhikari or the candidate for jnana kanda. It creates the mental condition required to commence the study of Shastra under a guru and thus gain jnana. So that is the Sambandha which is referred to in the Sambandha bhashya. So these are the four basic themes. Now, given the time frames involved, I will not be able to cover the true depth of the Sambandha bhashya, because even though this is a relatively small bhashya, if you print it out, it'll come to maybe 1.5 pages of Sanskrit. But it is so profound that Vartikakara, Sureshwaracharya, who is the direct disciple, who was the direct disciple of Adi Shankara Bhagavad-pada, wrote a sub-commentary called Vartika on both the brihadAraNyaka Upanishad and the Taittiriya Upanishad bhashya by Adi Shankaracharya. So Adi Shankaracharya, you have the Upanishad, the brihadAraNyaka Upanishad, for example. Acharya Shankara Bhagavad-pada wrote the bhashya to that, and Sureshwaracharya wrote the Vartika to the bhashya. And the brihadAraNyaka Vartika especially is a very large work comprising several thousand verses. Now Sureshwaracharya has written 1,000 verses just on the Sambandha bhashya only. So the Sambandha Vartikam is a phenomenally large work just in itself. That gives you an indication of how deep and profound it is. And when Acharya Shankara Bhagavad-pada writes something, there is a lot of underlying significance to it. So with that introduction, let's consider why should we talk about Sambandha. So what is at stake here? So let's examine the context here. The first thing that Acharya is seeking to establish is that Vedas in their entirety have validity. So here we have to understand the nature of what constitutes a pramana. And this is important because pramana is the or the means of knowledge refers to those different ways in which we know things. And so in Advaita Vedanta, for example, there are 6 pramanas. And pratyaksha, perception, anumana, inference, shabda, which is verbal testimony, and the Shruti pramana falls under Shabda pramana. Then you have upamana or similarity, arthapatti or postulation, and then you have the last one, which is anupalabdhi or absence. So these are the 6 pramanas accepted in Advaita Vedanta. And so what constitutes a pramana? We have to understand this. So there are 3 conditions for that. The first is that a pramana is something which is uncontradicted by anything else. So there's no other cognition or pramana should contradict what this pramana is saying. So if pratyaksha is saying something and Shruti is saying something which contradicts this, then you have a problem. So one of the 2 cannot be a pramana in that case. The second thing, so the test of validity here is not that something else supports this, rather something becomes invalid. So it's a test of invalidity as opposed to a test of validity. And this is what is known as parataf apramanyam. So you invalidate a pramana through something else, but you don't require something else to support a pramana for its validity. And that has a significance which we will come to in a second. So the first test is that it's uncontradicted by anything else. Or this is called abhaditattvam. So it cannot be contradicted. The second test is adhikatattvam. So essentially, what this means is that this has to be something which is unique, anadhikatam. It cannot be revealed by some other pramana. So if a particular pramana is revealing something that I already know, then the pramanya of that pramana is not there. So the purpose of the pramana is not to reveal something which is already known. So that is the second test. It has to reveal something unique. The third test for that is that it has to reveal something which has utility. And so what Acharya Shankara Bhagavad-pada establishes here is that Vedas satisfy all 3 tests. It reveals something which is uncontradicted by something by any other pramana. Secondly, it reveals something which is unique. It does that uniquely. And thirdly, what it reveals has utility. And using these 3 tests, he establishes that both the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda have validity here. So what he says is, Sarvopi ayam vedaha pratyaksha anumanabhyam anavagata ishtanishta prapti parihara upaya prakashana paraha sarva purushanam nisargata eva tat prapti pariharayoho ishtatvat. That means the entirety of the Veda has come to reveal something which is beyond the range of pratyaksha, perception, and anumana, logical reasoning. And with these 2, he means all pramanas. So what the Vedas are revealing is something very, very unique. And what is that? It is something which is naturally desirable by everybody. Nisargata eva sarva purushanam tat prapti pariharayoho ishtatvat. Everyone desires that. And what is that? Everyone commonly desires that they should possess or attain that which is desirable, which is wanted, and they should avoid that which is undesirable or anishtam. So ishta prapti, anishta parihara. So as far as the karma kanda is concerned, what the Vedas are revealing is dharma. What is punya, what is dharma, and what is adharma or papa. And both dharma and adharma are beyond the reach of pratyaksha, anumana, etc., etc. So and therefore the karma kanda has validity because it is revealing something which is unique and something which is incontrovertible by any other pramana, and it derives utility. The same 3 tests are met for the jnana kanda also, because what the jnana kanda reveals, which jnana kanda meaning Upanishads, what the Upanishads reveal is the knowledge of the self and the fact that it is distinct from the body. That is something that the Shruti Pramana, the Jnana Kanda in particular, is able to reveal. And so Acharya says that that knowledge too is beyond the reach of pratyaksha and anumana, etc., etc. That knowledge, so therefore it's anadhigatam. It is also abadhitam because no other pramana can contradict this. And this is something which is important. We have to understand this. Because as we said before, the test for the validity of a pramana is not that it has support from something else. No, unlike modern science. So in modern science, what do we say? We come up with a hypothesis and then we use perceptual data experimentation to prove that hypothesis. So that inferential reasoning depends on perception to prove it. So you have a hypothesis and you prove that using experiments. Whereas in Shastra Vyavahara, especially Advaita Vedanta, the test for validity is not the support from other pramanas. In fact, if some other pramana is saying the same thing as say Shruti pramana, for example, it could affect the uniqueness test that we had. So therefore, the test of validity is not that something else is supporting this pramana, rather the test of validity is that it has not been invalidated. So pratyaksha, anumana, etc. are not disproving what Shruti is proving. Now, Acharya is saying that the knowledge of the self is beyond the reach of perception, inference, and any other pramana. It is only the Upanishads that are capable of revealing that knowledge of the self. And therefore, the entirety of the Veda has validity. This is the basic contention of Acharya. Now, if you, there is another very famous verse by Sayanacharya in his Rigveda bhAShya. He says, "Pratyakshena numityava yastupayona budhyate enam vidanti vedena tasmat vedasya vedata." That is, the Vedatva, what makes the Veda Veda, or what gives it pramanya or validity, is revealing that which is otherwise unknowable. Pratyakshena anumityava. It is either by pratyaksha or anumati, which is inference or perception. The purpose of the Veda is to reveal something that is beyond the range of worldly pramanas. It is to reveal that which we could not have otherwise known. So there are two corollaries to this which we must understand. One, nothing can invalidate the Veda. That is the first corollary. Secondly, we cannot invoke anything else to support the Veda here. So there's a modern tendency for us to make Veda Pramana more acceptable to the young questioning mind. We seek to say that what the Veda is saying is supported by perception, etc. In fact, we need not do that. What is required is not that some other pramana proves the Veda. What is required is for us to convince people that the definition of validity that modern society accepts, that is support from other pramanas, will not apply to Vedas, because what the Vedas are revealing is otherworldly. So the implication for that, the second corollary, is that nothing can invalidate this also. So if the Vedas are revealing dharma or the knowledge of the self, which is beyond perception, inference, etc., how can perception, inference disprove it? Because the absence of proof is not proof of absence. Just because something cannot is not even in the range. So let me give an example. See, the eyes can see color, but they cannot see sound. The ears can see sound, but not color. So you cannot say that this red object that I'm seeing has to be disproved by my ears. How can the ears do that? The ears cannot tell you that. Similarly, if the Veda is talking about the nature of the self, or the Veda is saying if you do this particular yajna, you will attain this particular result, all these are otherworldly matters which are beyond laukika pramana, worldly means of knowledge. And therefore, if we want to convince our youngsters of the validity of a knowledge, of validity of a means of knowledge, specifically Veda Pramana, we have to change their views of what constitutes validity, not seek for ways to justify this, not seek for ways to justify what has been taught by the Veda. That is an exercise in futility. So anyway, so with that thing, what we have therefore proven is that the postulate here is that both the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda have validity. Now the Purva Mimamsaka, he has agreed to us with all that we have said. But when we say that Jnana Kanda also has validity, the Purva Mimamsaka jumps into the fray and says, no, I do not accept that. He says that I will only accept that those Vedic statements that reveal action do this yajna, perform this karma. So like a commandment, like a vidhi, or those that say do not do this action, do not do himsa, do not hurt living creatures, do not drink alcohol, things like that. So either only vidhi and nishedha, a commandment and a prohibition, those statements that deal with action or the avoidance of action, only those statements have validity. And he says that the Upanishad or the Jnana Kanda, which reveals the nature of the self, which is revealing the fact about something. It is not revealing an action. The Upanishad is not saying you have to know the self through a means of an action. I think this is the nature of the self. So it is revealing a thing, revealing a fact about a thing. So he's saying that those statements that reveal the fact about a thing, we cannot accept as something valid. And this view has been framed by Jaimani Maharishi in the Purva Mimamsa Sutra. He says, Amnayasya kriyarthatvat anarthakyam atadarthanam. That is, the focus of Amnaya or Veda or scriptures in general is towards Kriya, Kriyarthatvat, Kriya Bodhaka Vakya, those statements that impel action or prohibit action. And therefore, those statements that do not have Kriya or action as what they reveal are Anarthakyam. They do not have validity. Now, Shankara Bhagavad Pada say does not accept this, because the implication of that view is that the entirety of the Jnana Kanda has validity not because it reveals the nature of the self. It has only a dependent validity only to the extent that it reveals some karma or some rituals will it be considered as valid. So all those Upanishadic statements that reveal the nature of the self will be invalidated in the Purva Mimamsa worldview. So this statement, Acharya unsurprisingly disagrees with this. And the way he argues, I'll give you a sample of the argument. I won't go into the detail. Acharya says, why do you say that statements that reveal the fact are not valid? He says, no, I do not accept that those statements have validity. So Shankara Bhagatpada then says, well, if that is the case, then the Veda reveals that there is a self. It also reveals that there is a self which is different from the body. Now, if you, the Purva Mimamsaka, say that I will not accept those two statements that are revealed by the Upanishad because they are talking about the nature of the self. They are not telling me to do something. They're talking about the nature of the self. If you say that that is not valid, then the very basis of rituals itself is invalidated. To explain, if you take any sacrifice, the basic sacrifice is Agnihotram. So it says Yavat Jivam Agnihotram Juhya. That's the commandment. As long as one is alive, one has to keep performing the Agnihotra sacrifice twice a day, once in the morning, once in the evening. And it has to be performed with all the other sacrifices, Darsha Purnamasam, Chaturmasyam, Agrayanam, etc., etc. Everything else has to be performed. And what's the benefit of that? After death, one goes to heaven. So Shankara asks here, if you, the Purva Mimamsaka, are unwilling to accept the existence of a self, which is, what is the pravritti or the motivation for anyone to perform karma? Because the benefit of the karma only accrues after the body is dead. So if you do not know that there is a self which is different from the body, which then gets the benefit of going to Swarga after this body has gone, what is the motivation to perform any karma? Because the benefit only comes after this body has gone. So therefore, the performance of rituals is predicated on the knowledge of a self which is independent from the body. This is Shankaracharya's argument. To which the Purva Mimamsaka says, no, I agree that. I agree that the knowledge of the self is the predicate, is what is required for anyone to perform karma. That I agree. But what I'm saying is, it is not the Shruti that reveals the knowledge of the self. Perception itself can do that. So that is the statement of the Purva Mimamsaka. He says perception can reveal a self which is distinct from the body. Now Acharya says, Shankaracharya says, if that is the case, O Purva Mimamsaka, if perception was capable of revealing a self which is independent from the body, then let us look at the Charvaka. So the Charvaka philosophy, it is very similar to the modern consumerist culture. There is a verse that is quoted half in jest about the Charvaka philosophy, which says, Yavat jivet sukham jivet. Rinam Kritva Gritam Pibet. Bhasmi Bhutasya Dehasya Punaragamam Kutaha. That is, essentially, it's very similar to modern consumerist philosophy. It says, as long as you live happily, get as much comfort as possible, ensure that this body that you have is well taken care of. So if it means that you have to borrow and to enjoy, to consume and make this body happy, do that. If you have to borrow and drink ghee, Ranam Kritva Gritam Pibet, do that. So that's what we are saying. No, today what we are doing is we are spending credit cards to buy this, that, etc. Even if we incur a loan, it's fine. So that this body is kept well taken care of. This physical body is taken care of. That's the modern consumerist culture. But this existed as a separate philosophy thousands of years ago in India, called the Charvaka. That is why it's called Charuvak. It's very pleasant to hear, because as we know, what is pleasant and what is good are two different things. And people normally tend to prefer what is pleasant. And that's what the Charvaka also says. But the reason he says that is because he accepts only pratyaksha. He accepts only perception. So what the Charvaka says is that all I can see is this physical body. Okay. So therefore, I do not see a self which is different from the physical body. So this body itself is the self. And therefore, if you ask me to put this body through pain in order to get some benefit after this body has burnt, after this body has been, after the death, why will I waste time on this? Because all I accept is the existence of this body, not the existence of a consciousness which is independent from the body. So this is the Charvaka Matam. So Shankara Bhagavat Pada says, O Purva Mimamsaka, if your contention is that perception could reveal a self which is independent from the body, then the Charvaka who believes only in perception should also agree that. But what does he say? He says that only the body is the self. He doesn't acknowledge the existence of a self independent from the body. So therefore, the argument that the Purva Mimamsaka said that perception can reveal the self is invalidated, because we have other philosophies which do not agree with that, but agree with perception alone. Now, the reason why perception cannot reveal the self, Acharya does not discuss here, but he discusses elsewhere in other Upanishad, other bhashyas. And the basic reason for that is that the nature of the self does not make it amenable to perception. So how do we perceive things? We perceive things through the sense organs, the five senses, the sense of sight, hearing, touch, smell, taste. But the self is, you cannot be touched, it cannot be seen, it cannot be heard. So how will the sense organs access the self? Because the self does not have shabda sparsha rupa rasa gandha, sound, touch, taste, smell, etc., form. The sense organs are not able to access it, and therefore it is not accessible to perception. So this is the contention of Shankara Bhagavad Pada, and this is also backed by Shruti and reasoning. Now, so far we have seen why perception cannot, or pratyaksha cannot access the self. Now, the Nayayika turns up here, the logician who believes in logical reasoning. He's like the scientist of today. So he says, well, it's okay that perception cannot reveal the self. My contention is that the logical reasoning or inferential reasoning can prove the self. So Acharya Shankara says, okay, hang on one second. How can you say that inferential reasoning proves the self? Because let us look at the mechanism for inferential reasoning. How does it prove something? So if you, the standard example given for inferential reasoning is that somebody sees smoke coming from a mountain, but does not see fire. There is no direct perception of fire, but he sees smoke. And based on the smoke, he concludes that there must be fire in the mountain, because without fire, smoke is not possible. So, and so he infers the presence of fire even when he does not see it. So the Nayayika is saying, similarly, I'll infer the presence of the self. Now, Shankaracharya says, if you look at the mechanism of inference, it requires perception. Perception is necessary for two things. One, it is necessary for someone to have observed that fire and smoke invariably go together. That is, wherever there is smoke, there must be fire. He must have observed this perceived this in several places for him to draw the conclusion that if I see a smoke, it invariably means that there is fire there. So even that's one perception that is required. The second perception that is required is that in the instance where he is trying to infer the presence of fire, smoke must be seen. The perception of smoke is the second perception. So if perception is required for inference and self is beyond perception, how can you infer the presence of the self? Because inference always requires perception. Just like in modern science, when we come up with a hypothesis, what did we say? We said that this hypothesis, let us test it. How do we test it? We need perceptual data. So unless there is perceptual data possible about the self, one cannot infer the self either. So therefore, because it is imperceptible, it is uninferable also. The self cannot be inferred, it cannot be accessed by Anumana Pramana. Now, the Nayayika says, well, if you're saying that the self cannot be um, known by inferential reasoning, why does the Shruti provide so many reasons? The Shruti, there are so many examples where it supports its statement that the self exists by giving various logical reasons for the existence of the self. Now, Shankaracharya gives a very important statement. He says that what inference is capable of is merely proving the possibility of something. It is a Sambhavana Yukti. It cannot do Nirdharana. It cannot prove that something exists. It can merely say that the possibility of something exists. So if you want to know that something exists, you cannot rely on inference alone. Inference must be supported by something else. That is why the hypothesis must be supported by perception. Similarly, when the Shruti is giving logical reasons, the reason why we accept it is because the Shruti has given Nirdharana. So for example, there are so many quotes on the existence of the self. Like in the Kathopanishad, for example, the third boon of Nachiketas, he asks, "O Yamadharmaraja, yeyam prete vichikitsa manushye asti ityeke nayam asti iti chaike." There is a doubt about this self. Some people say it exists, some people say it doesn't exist. So tell us, does it exist or not? And Yamadharmaraja replies with emphatic declaration, Asti ityeva upalabdhavyaha. It does exist. So the Shruti Pramana is independently proving, establishing the existence of the self independent from the body, and then provides supporting reasoning. So reason can support Shruti, but it cannot establish in the absence of the Shruti. So if, oh Nayayika, you are saying that with reasoning you can prove this, you're able to do so only because the Shruti is standing behind you saying it does exist. Without that, your inference will not be sufficient to prove this. So with this too, I want to quickly talk about so two themes have been covered, as I said. First, the entirety of the Veda is valid, including the Jnana Kanda, and secondly, that only the Shruti can reveal the self. So this comes to the second portion of the bhAShya, where an Acharya changes gear and he talks about the purpose of Karma Kanda. So just because we say Jnana Kanda, Jnana is the means to knowledge of the self, we are not invalidating Karma Kanda. There is scope for Karma Kanda also. So we do accept that if you follow the commandments of the Veda, you will attain punya, you will earn dharma. And if you do adharma, you act against the Vedas, you will earn papa. If you do punya, you will attain greater lokas. You will have a favorable life. You may even go to heaven. You may even become Chaturmukha Brahma. You can even become Hiranyagarbha. But all these are finite merits. They will be exhausted at some point. Tetam bhuktva swargalokam vishalam kshine punye martyalokam vishanti. So after having enjoyed the benefits of punya, even if it is in heaven, you will have to come back. Similarly, even when you are struggling in naraka because of papa, that suffering will also end, and you will have to face the consequences of your action. So this is what Acharya is saying. Karma, what the Veda reveals, is valid in the Karma Kanda because it gives you the valid means to achieve dharma and to avoid adharma. That much we accept. However, Karma Kanda by itself is insufficient to break the cycle of births and deaths, which is samsara. So if you look at the nature of karma, what does karma do? We perform karma and we get dharma, we earn punya or papa. And to enjoy the benefits of punya and to face the consequences of papa, we have to take another life. So karma is the basis for taking another body, another birth, and then facing the consequences of the punya or papa karma. Now, why does someone perform karma? People perform actions, not just Vedika karma, even Laukika karma. People perform these rituals because they desire something. They want what the karma gives. So the Veda says you will go to heaven by performing Agnihotra. The person who desires heaven will perform the karma. Why? Because he wants to go to heaven. So kama or desire is the root of karma. Is the reason why someone does karma. And so why does someone have kama or desire? They have desire because they don't have the object of desire. So if, for example, if I desire a mango, I will not desire a mango when I'm eating the mango itself. I may desire another mango, but I desire the other mango because I don't have the second mango. So we'll only desire those things that we don't have. This is natural, and this is simple logic. Why do we desire things that we don't have? Because we think we don't have those things. And why is that? Because a sense of apurnatvam. We feel that we are incomplete, and therefore we we desire things because of that sense of incompleteness. So apurnatvam is the cause of kama. So what did we see? We said kama is the cause of karma, karma is the cause of samsara, and the cause of kama is apurnatvam. But the Shruti says you are purnam, you are infinite, you are complete in itself, you don't need to do anything. So what is the reason that I have that sense of apurnatvam? Avidya. So ignorance of my true nature causes me to feel that I'm incomplete, and that sense of incompleteness causes me to desire. That sense of desire causes me to do karma. That sense of karma leads to next birth, and that leads to next birth, next birth, next birth, next birth, etc. So this beginningless cycle of births and deaths that we call samsara is happening because of the root cause of ajnana. And karma, which is the product of the ajnana, avidya, kama, karma, that cycle that we spoke about, that karma cannot remove ajnana because its nature is not contrarian to ajnana or avidya. And what is contrarian to ajnana or avidya? Jnana. So the basis for the removal of samsara along with its root cause ignorance, the mechanism is not karma but jnana. That is the third theme that we talked about. Karma kanda is not the direct means to moksha. Jnana alone is the direct means to moksha. And the fourth one, with that, I will stop this and we can take any questions if people have. The fourth theme that Acharya talks about is that that in itself does not invalidate the karma kanda for the mumukshu, the one desiring liberation. Because the karma that is performed for desire will lead to samsara. But the same karma, if it is performed without desiring its result, if it's performed dedicating those results to Ishvara, the same Veda says that that will lead to the purification of the mind. And you need to purify the mind for liberation because jnana, which is the direct path to liberation, is a cognitive activity. And a cognitive activity, which is highly subtle, by the way, the knowledge of the self is highly subtle, requires a highly subtle mind as well. So karma kanda plays a role in purifying the mind, making it capable of understanding the knowledge of the self. And therefore, the Sambandha in the Sambandha bhAShya, the connection between karma kanda and jnana kanda, which is the reason why we had this big discussion, that connection, that sambandha is upaya upeya sambandha. That is, karma kanda is the means to create the conditions necessary to commence the study of jnana and go into jnana kanda. Even though it does not directly produce moksha, it is a necessary step. It is not sufficient. So with that, let us just recap what are the four basic themes. So the four basic themes that we looked at, the entirety of the Vedic canon has validity, both the Karma Kanda and the Jnana Kanda. One. Two, the knowledge of the self can be known only through the Jnana Kanda. So that is the purpose of Jnana Kanda, to reveal the self. No other pramana can do that. That is the second thing. Third thing, Moksha can be achieved only through jnana, not through karma. That's the third thing. And finally, this does not mean that karma kanda is invalid for the mumukshu, the one seeking liberation. It is necessary to prepare the mind, for jnana. And that is the sambandha between karma kanda and jnana kanda. With that, we'll conclude this talk. If anyone has any questions, we can take that. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Thank you, Venkataramanji. This is a really wonderful talk where you very clearly explained to us the importance of the Veda Pramana and the respective importance of both Karma Kanda and Jnana Kanda. You know, without one is required to get into the other. You explained it very well to us, a very complex topic, but very clearly explained to us. Okay, there are a few questions here. One question is that, is such complex logic necessary to experience God? Is one of the questions that has been asked.
It is not necessary. It is not necessary because what is necessary is Shraddha in the scriptures. Okay, if one is blessed with that Shraddha in the scriptures, nothing else is needed. Just that Shraddha in the scriptures, if a guru conveys that, and if one has a sufficiently clear mind, and a Shraddhavan labhate jnanam, as Bhagavan Sri Krishna says, if that is if one has that Shraddha, it's great because that is sufficient. But what to do? We don't have, no? So we have to use various means of knowledge, various ways we can use to convince ourselves of the truth. And that is the reason why Shruti says, Shrotavyo mantavyo nididhyasitavyaha. That is, to know the Atma, one has to hear it from the Guru. So once you hear it, you understand what it's saying. But you have so many doubts about it. The purpose of manana or logical thinking is to remove those doubts. Now, if you don't have those doubts, fantastic, problem solved. So you can directly accept that because essentially this is a purely cognitive process, and therefore, and Shruti can independently reveal the self. It doesn't require the support of logic. The support of logic is required to remove the doubts that you have. That's all.
So this Shraddha is purely like Ishvara Anugraha. You know, you can't, there's no other way. Which is either you have it or you don't have it.
No.
Works.
That is the purpose of Sambandha bhAShya. What Acharya is saying is that one of the things that constitute the pure mind, the sadhana chatushtaya sampatti, there are 4 things that are talked about. First is viveka, the ability to discriminate between what is the self and what is not the self. Secondly is vairagya, a sense of dispassion, disinterest in the worldly things, in sense objects. The third is an intense desire for liberation or mumukshutvam. And the fourth is a 6-fold characteristics. It's called Shamadhi Shatka Sampatti, and it contains many things. One of those 6 things is Shraddha. So to achieve this Sadhana Chatushtaya Sampatti, including Shraddha, you have Karma Yoga. So if you perform karma as Karma Yoga, then Ishvara will bless you with that. So it is not that either you have it or you don't. You have to work towards if you don't.
Staying on Shraddha, there's one question which says, can Shraddha alone lead to self-realization?
No, you need Shruti Pramana and the Guru. So the Guru has to convey the meaning of what the Shruti is saying to the candidate. And if the candidate is sufficiently advanced, then that is possible. But realistically speaking, attaining liberation is 1 in a million. A crore will be able to do that. So there, if one is sufficiently advanced, then Shraddha. But it's not as if they have only Shraddha. If one is sufficiently advanced, they'll have other things also. What Shraddha allows us to do is to perform Karma Yoga more, and is to believe in the words of the scripture, to believe in the Shravanam, and to the Shruti Pramanya Buddhi, or the sense of this is valid, what the Shruti is telling me is valid, and by knowing that I have essentially achieved moksha. That is a very, very important thing. So having Shraddha is important, but it is not the only thing. There are many other things that are required as well. And when the questioner is asking, is Shraddha alone sufficient for moksha? The answer is yes, assuming that all the other conditions have been met.
Okay, there's one more question which says that there is a tendency to prove what Shruti says by taking parallels from science and things from the worldly, things from the world, secular world, I suppose. Is that right?
I won't say it is wrong. As I said, one can use any reasoning, any form of reasoning to support the Shruti. Shrutimata Starko Anusindhiyatam, as Acharya says in this Sopana Panchakam, he says you can use reasoning to support what the Shruti is saying. So if you are able to, if the purpose of this is to help the student better understand what the Shruti is saying, and the reasoning is in the line of what the Shruti is saying, then you can certainly use it. But if people want to prove the Veda using Shruti, then that is an exercise in futility, because you can't do that. Shruti is an independent pramana.
Okay. There's one question, of course, which for all of us who start in this field, if one wants to start to know about Advaita from scratch, how do we get started?
First thing is
for all of us, you know.
So I think the first thing is to look at one's own life and see whether our actions are in accordance with dharma. So, and that we have to know by understanding what is dharma first. So in general, the basic thing we should do is we should do our nitya naimittika karma regularly. So if whatever is the vihita karma for that particular varna, we have to do that, and that ashrama we have to do that. And if we continue doing that over a period of time, our mind will be sufficiently clear, and Ishvara himself will give us opportunities to meet a guru. Because if you perform this for a sufficient amount of time, there will be opportunities for studying Vedanta. I do not subscribe to the view that people can jump into Vedanta directly without doing their basic karmas first. Because unless one has given up karma formally through sannyasa, and even that sannyasa has to be on the basis of viveka, vairagya, etc. People cannot simply just take up sannyasa just like that. One must have an intense desire for liberation. So the realistic thing that people should do is do their basic karmas first. On continuously doing that, there will be opportunities. Keep your eyes open for finding the right guru. And once you find that guru, learn the scriptures through that guru. But and while doing that, one has to keep continuing to perform their karma. At some point, naturally, that karma will also stop. At that point, one can take up sannyasa, and then from there, you can move forward.
Staying on the beginner's dilemma, one of the questions is, what's a realistic target for a beginner in this life?
That's a difficult one to answer. It depends on when you say a beginner, is it a beginner who is self-certifying as a beginner? Or is it a beginner who is
started this journey of learning?
Okay. So, but the thing is, we may think that we are a beginner. We may not be actually, because you will be surprised sometimes. You know that can happen. But I understand where the questioner is coming from. Essentially, if one feels that one is a beginner, I think, as I said, the best thing to do is to do our karma. So, and not just the laukika karma, do the Veda Vihita karma also. So, if that means that the Sandhya Vandanam has to be done, you have to do the Sandhya Vandanam, Trikala Sandhya Vandanam. And there are opportunities. The thing is, we should want to do these things, because not do it because this is going to give us some material benefit or not. We should first of all give that up. We should do it because the Veda is saying we should do it, because that is the right thing to do. Right? Ishvara has given us a birth in this particular body for a reason. Because we did previous punya, papa, we have got these experiences, we got this body, and therefore what the Veda is telling us to do for our varna and our ashrama, we have to follow sincerely. So that should be the aim to begin with. Now, if one has sufficiently done that, one will know. How will one know? I mean, one will know in the sense that you can approach a guru, and the guru will be able to assess where one stands. And then if the guru says continue doing karma, you have to accept the guru's words and continue doing karma. And later approach the guru again until the guru says you're ready. Keep doing karma. That's the target.
Clearly, your talk has touched people's heart, because there are even more questions pouring in, and we'll take a few of them. One of the questions is, how does one develop dispassion from worldly objects?
Okay, so the thing is, if you look at worldly objects, let us look at the basic defects that are there in worldly objects. Now, the thing is, why do we like something? We like something because we think we are incomplete without it. Right? Sometimes we don't even know reason as to why we like or dislike something. We have natural liking, raga, or a natural disliking, dvesha, to something. Now, and then that makes us go for those things, right? So those sense objects. So, but let us leave that separately. If we look at the reasons behind going after sense objects, or how to give up sense objects, there are three fundamental problems with it. One is that whatever we have, it will not give us complete satisfaction, because working towards that thing is painful. And once we have it, we are not able to enjoy it happily, because we are always thinking that it's going to end. So eating a mango, while if you have a child, you'll know, while eating the chocolate itself, will say, oh no, the chocolate's about to end. We are just like children. We think that, so even while enjoying the benefits of it, we are concerned that it's going to go away. So that is the first thing. Atripti karatam. It is never satisfactory. Second thing, it is creates a sense of addiction, bandhakatvam. So if you have a chocolate today and you keep having chocolate every day, one day you don't have chocolate, you'll be, oh God, I have to have that. So it creates a sense of dependency. And the moment we depend on something else apart from ourselves, it's a pitfall, because if you don't have it, that'll be a big problem. And thirdly, when it goes away, it creates a huge problem for us. It is a cause of sorrow. The sense of loss is a big problem. So when we are looking at sense objects, we have to constantly look at why we want it and whether that thing is really going to help us, and be aware of the limitations of something. So the Shruti does not say you must shun wealth, etc. No, it doesn't say. It says that you have to realize the purpose of everything. If an object gives a particular utility, but enjoy it for that utility and stop there. Don't think it is going to solve your life's problems. It is not. It is going to create problems. So vairagya means a recognition. It has to be a vairagya born of viveka, or discrimination, a recognition that what that sense object is limited. It is not going to give me permanent happiness. And that, practicing that again and again and again, is the way we develop vairagya.
Okay, we'll take one last question. I mean, you of course said that the bhAShya clearly says that jnana is the way to knowledge, but there are also teachings that karma yoga and bhakti yoga can also take you to liberation. So the questioner wants to ask, how do we
Reconcile that.
Reconcile? Yes, exactly. How do we reconcile to that?
Yeah, as we said, we are not saying that karma is invalid. We are not saying that bhakti is invalid. When the Shruti or when the Smriti says that you need to have bhakti, you need to have jnana, karma, etc., we have to understand that it has its role. So the role that bhakti will play, bhakti will give us that shraddha. The role, it will give us other benefits, which are important for moksha. But you cannot stop with bhakti alone. You cannot stop with karma alone. At some point, all of us have to come to jnana. So when the Shruti says you have to do bhakti, you have to do karma, you have to do bhajans, nama sankirtanam, all of that is valid. And we have to keep doing it. At some point, we will ourselves realize that the utility of that bhakti, of that karma yoga, etc., we have got the benefit of it, and we will automatically, the mind will be ready to accept it. Now, right, sitting here, we may say, oh, if the Shruti is telling me to do bhakti, or if an acharya is telling me to do nama sankirtanam, why are you asking me to do jnana? I'm not asking anyone to do jnana. The Shruti is saying, tarati shokam atma vit. The knower of the self crosses the ocean of samsara. Brahma vit apnoti param. The knower of Brahman attains the highest. So the Shruti is saying that jnana is the means to moksha. It does not mean that karma, bhakti, upasana, etc. are invalid. That is the Sambandha or Sambandha bhAShya. These all play a role. They are necessary but not sufficient. At some point, we'll realize it's not sufficient.
Yeah. Actually, several people wanted to get in touch with you in case they have further questions or queries or something. We did share your Advaita Siddhi, that website details. But is there anything else that if you want, you can please go ahead and share in case they can contact you there or on that blog? Is that
that Advaita Siddhi blog itself has my contact details. There's an email address provided. You can just email me there.
Okay, so that will do, because we've already shared that with them, and then they can take it forward from there. So thank you so much for this wonderful talk. You've really broken down a very complex theme to all of us, and then made it very realistic. Like, how do we, people who are interested in these sadhanas, in this knowledge, how we can step by step actually approach it and attain our goals. So this is really wonderful, very empowering, and truly a blessing of Adi Shankara himself that we managed to get you on our program, and we hope to see you in the future also. Thank you very much.